right.
And I'll introduce you to the show and all that kind of stuff and explain what's going on.
All right.
Well, what's up, everybody? Sorry for the delay in the show today. We've had a few audio issues we tried to work out. We finally think we got it worked out. You won't be able to see our guest. He worked diligently on the hair and the nails and all that kind of stuff today, but he was not able. We were not able to pull him up on video. We do apologize for that. For most of those folks from his area that were going to be tuning in, you know how ugly he is to start with. You just tell him that when you see him the next time. All right. Today's show, our special guest today is Mr. Kurt Auger. Kurt, how you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing great, William, man. Sorry we're having all these.
Man, I'm going to tell you, we have had it. We tried last night, couldn't get it done. I had issues on my end. We had a storm came through my area today, had a couple tornadoes, and I told him when I jumped on and was setting everything up, it was working perfectly. But for some reason, we just cannot get his audio and video to work tonight. So as long as we got his audio going, we're going to continue to go with the show. And, if nothing else, next time I'm up near Starkville or over in Farmersville, we might just have to sit down and redo this where everybody can see his beautiful face. All right. For those of you that don't know who my guest is tonight, I want to go ahead. I'm going to give him the opportunity to kind of give you a snapshot view of who he is and what's going on with him. And now, look, he's a preacher. I'm going to warn y'all. He's got 3 points. He's got probably a story, and he might say amen at the end, but let's just roll with it, okay? Kurt, go ahead and tell us a little bit about who you are.
That would be all right.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, I'm Kurt Auger. Most of the folks are going to recognize the name probably in connection with Brooks. Of course, he's a pitcher at Mississippi State, and I come from a little small community in north central Louisiana, Union Parish. We're in Farmerville, which is the parish seat, and I pastor the First Baptist Church here. Married the mayor's daughter almost 40 years ago, and was in the logging business for a while. That's kind of my family background, and ended up when I was 30, went off to seminary and began to preach, and been doing that for the last 30 or so years. So it's been a good one.
Well, I'm gonna, if I know Kurt doesn't mind, I'm gonna tell you guys a little back history of how Kurt and I know each other. We actually met by absolute happenstance. I happened to do a little security work at Mississippi State University. He mentioned earlier his son is a pitcher on the staff there, and I actually met their son in passing the weekend before I actually met Kurt and his wife. We were doing security down by the field. They were signing some autographs after the game. A buddy of mine named Mac, who runs the actual event security stuff there at baseball, he was introducing me to all the new young guys, the young arms and the new players that were coming in. And Brooks was one of the young men that I was introduced to. And then by just absolute happenstance, like I said, the following weekend I was back working, and I stumbled across this fella. It was kind of funny at a distance. As I approached him, I was going to speak to him, and before he told me what he did, I don't know what it is, I knew what his occupation was. I knew he was a preacher or a pastor. I don't know how I knew that. They have a look. I'm going to just put it at, they have a look. And he and I got to chatting, and I don't know, Kurt. I mean, it seemed like we'd known each other forever after about 20 minutes because we both kind of shared stories, our stories with each other. And then he introduced me to his lovely wife, and now I know why he stays so straight, because she keeps him straight. And now he's got more than just Brooks. He's got some more kids. He just we're going to talk a little bit about Brooks as the night goes on, because we are talking about bringing them up in baseball. But tell us a little bit about, first of all, you didn't even tell our audience what your wife's name was. You just said that she was politically connected to the town for which you live in.
Well, there's a bigger political connection than that, too.
Well, I was wondering if you were going to get into that. I wasn't going to say anything.
She was along, and so she has that heritage going on. So I married into Louisiana royalty.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. My wife's name is Renee, and we met in high school, just so you know this, and she'll tell you if you ask her. She was pursuing me pretty heavy back in those days. Bought me a flower, one Valentine's Day and kind of began to woo me. And so through that, we ended up dating and eventually got married. We've got 3 children, our 17 years difference in their ages. Megan, beautiful daughter, she lives about 30 miles from us in Sterlington, married. Her husband is also in ministry, and they have 2 children. And Megan is 38, I believe. And then middle son or the middle child is Jake. He married a California girl, and they went off west. They're out in Texas, and he's an engineer out there doing well. They have a beautiful little girl. And so Piper, Deacon, and Brooklyn are our 3 grandkids, and Jake and Jenny live out that way. Megan and Cody, as I said, live here, and then of course Brooks is in Starkville, and that's the family.
Yeah, as some of our listeners that follow the show regularly, I actually put on here that you are the father of a former guest, Brooks Auger. Brooks and a young lady named Kenley Hawk appeared on the show together. I established that they were the it couple of Mississippi State University. They didn't know that until I told them that. They were glad to hear that, though. So anyway, so they've been trying to uphold the whole it couple, moniker. It's tough. The crown is heavy. So let's first of all of your children. That's pretty wide age range there. So how was it? I mean, I know of course Brooks plays ball. Probably been playing ball since he could pick one up because he's at Mississippi State playing ball right now. What about the other 2? Were the other 2? Did they gravitate toward athletics, or did they go a different path?
No, they all came here athletes. We were, that's a big part of our heritage, and so we started playing balls as quick as they could walk. And Megan was a real good softball player, played second base, had a very successful high school career, and was a all-state, all-district. They won state championship. Her senior year, should have won it her junior year, but got it the senior year. And she decided she wanted to be a nurse and wasn't really interested in pursuing college athletics. And Jake, same way. He came into his own about his 8th grade year, really started to take some strides in baseball. Big left-handed. He's tall like Brooks. He's left-handed and power hitter. And we thought he was going to go over to Louisiana Tech and play baseball, but he decided to pursue his time pursuing a degree in engineering. And when he graduated, he was Mr. Engineer over there, and very decorated academically. And so both of them, though, were very good ball players. Jake was a 4-year starter, and I think a 3-year all-district, and I think he may have got some all-state recognition his senior year as well. But all of them were, really good ball players.
And then, of course, there's Brooks, just bringing up the rear.
Brooks.
Yeah, so, man, I had no idea. So your children got all their athletic ability and their intellectual brilliance from your wife.
Well, I don't know about that now. I don't know about that.
I'm just asking. I'm just asking. I don't know. That it's kind of weird though. You joked earlier about you married into Louisiana royalty. For those of y'all that didn't catch it, Renee used to be a Long, Long, like Huey P. Long. The bridge that you travel over when you get to New Orleans. And so she's heavily, as the young folks would say out on the street, she is heavily affiliated in the Louisiana or the New Orleans, Louisiana area. So I joked with Kurt one time. I said, "Look, man, you better watch your step. End up with some concrete boots at the bottom of the river if you don't do it right." So
just disappear, vanish.
All right. So you were talking about your 3 children, all athletic. So let's see, your daughter you said was the oldest one. So you bounced back and forth between softball and baseball, and then of course, were they all multi-sport athletes, or did they concentrate on one?
Megan was just a softball. She didn't cheer. She didn't dance. She just played softball. In high school, had a very strict and dedicated coach that practiced every day of the week, I think, except Sunday. As a matter of fact, they had T-shirts that had the day of the week on it, and they wore their T-shirts to practice that day. They get up and 8 o'clock. I think the day after prom, their senior year, they had to be at the field at 8 o'clock to practice. I mean, he was that type of coach, and so she had somebody pushing her outside of dad. So I got to step back and enjoy that from a parent standpoint.
Okay.
Jake, by the time Jake came along, I was coaching him. I coached him all the way through. And, of course, Brooks was tag along, the third child, always at the ballpark. He kind of came here doing his thing, and ball was a big part of that. But, yeah, some of our greatest memories were spent at ballparks with my kids, for sure.
Well, that's where I was going to segue next about if you started that early and they were all athletic, that means you lived at a ball field essentially for 25 years. Well, I mean, you're still living at, technically you're still living at a ball field because Brooks still has some eligibility in college. So
that's right. That's right. It's been about 33 or 34 years at the ball field, and we're still doing it.
And you were the best coach that all three of them had. Is that what I heard? It kind of an undertone.
Well, it depends on who you ask about that now.
Well, I was joking.
It's not always easy to coach your child, especially a little girl.
Brother, I know. Listen, well, I don't know anything. First of all, I stayed completely away. Both my oldest daughter and my youngest daughter both at some point tried the athletic route. You know, they played the softball, especially the youth league, youth rec league type stuff. My daughter played a little junior high and I think 1 year high school, and then her and my youngest daughter both segued to the band. They were color guard, and I think they were forced to play an instrument at some point through that, and that's kind of where they excelled. And my son, sandwiched in the middle, literally one of the first photos he ever had taken, he has a ball glove on in the picture. That's the only way he'd quit crying so we could get the picture taken. So I knew from a very early age that he was going to be a kid that was going to want to be at the ball field. There's parents that sometimes the running joke is you got two sets of kids at the ballpark. You got those that are driven to be the best player in the league, and then you got kids that are dragged to the ballpark trying to fulfill this fantasy dreamscape of a parent that never played past 9 years old, really wasn't that good, but they think their kid's going to be in the major leagues one day. That kind of, and that's sad to say. I tried to stay away from that. That's why I didn't do a whole lot of coaching. I didn't even try to coach my girls because I'd be honest with you, I'm not versed enough in softball to have been a decent coach anyway. I could have taught them fundamental stuff like fielding and throwing and stuff like that, but like working with a pitcher, look, I was a pitcher as forever, every year I played ball, but I have no idea how a young lady can crank up off that mound and throw a softball, somewhere in the 70-mile-an-hour range, somewhere in the 70. Some of them can throw it up near 80, which is like 105 miles an hour for a guy throwing off a mound. So that blows my mind. So, and so when you were coming up with them, you said you coached them some. Was that an emphasis for you? Did you use that as, I want to make sure these kids are, performing at their optimal level, or did you use it as an opportunity to mainly just spend more time with them? Because if you were going to be at the ball field, you were going to have that intimate interaction with them, that along with other kids. Because I know as I got a little older and my son got a little older, I had more fun coaching to try to show these young men that I was dealing with, hey, baseball's fantastic, but one day when you go into the real world, you'll be able to use what I'm trying to show you here in the real world. Was that which philosophy did you have? Were you like uber competitive, or
being a part of kids' lives is something that I've really enjoyed. I actually was president of our local complex here in Farmerville for a number of years, and so it was just what we did, and got to invest in a lot of young people's life. It was really a way for us to make connections, even through the church and the families, and so
Right.
I looked at it as from a lot of different perspectives. But when it came to my own kids, certainly, I think it started out with I wanted them to be who they wanted to be. But the competitive nature that we tend to have in my family, I probably wasn't always that kind of dad, just to be honest with you. I think you learn as you go. I didn't do real well. I tried to coach Megan a couple of years, and little girls, you got to kind of pamper them and baby them, and I didn't handle that real well. So I saw real quick that the best way to get along with my wife at the ballpark was going to be sit beside her and let somebody else coach, and just be the dad that worked at home. With the boys, it was a little different because they enjoyed spending time with me, and I enjoyed spending time with them, and so that was just every afternoon thing. We live, rural Louisiana. We're away from batting cages and pitching facilities and all of that, and so I bought a batting cage, put it up in the yard. We built mounds and for them to throw off of, and so that's just what we did. And when hunting season was over and the sun started shining a little bit, we got the baseball out and the bats and softball or whatever it was, and we spent our afternoons in the yard. So it was a great opportunity for us to spend time together as a family. And so, but I wish I could say that I was the dad that was all it was, because, I push my kids. I've got a list here. Renee was she was digging through some stuff today, and she pulled this out. She said, you need to look at this. And it must have been Brooks' 6th grade year, maybe his 7th grade year. He decided he wanted to play basketball. And so apparently he wasn't putting forth the effort his dad thought that he should. So I left him a note in his schoolwork one day that said, if you're going to play basketball, these are things that you must do, or you're going to give your dad a stroke. So I had a list of things for him there to concentrate on, and hustling and getting them down the court and that type of thing. I just always, I've got a saying, you don't have to be the best, but I want you to be the best that you can be. And so that's kind of been our motto.
Well, I didn't even think to ask you this. I jokingly said this, and that was a joke when I was talking about they got their intelligence and their athletic ability from your wife. I can only assume she probably was a bit athletic. But what about you? Like, were you the guy back in high school?
Yeah, I did. I played ball after school. I played in a little I don't know what you called it. We just kept playing. We didn't quit playing baseball. We kept playing baseball, and then it went to slow pitch softball, and I did that. And we traveled all over the state of Louisiana on the weekends playing, and then when I started having kids, when Megan got big enough to play, then I started putting my time that way, and so I played less and she played more, So, but yeah, I was a pretty good baseball player. Baseball was really the only thing. I played a little football, a little basketball, but baseball was really what I enjoyed more than anything. And that's actually where Brooks got his name. I got the nickname put on me when I was a kid of Brooks Robinson. I played third base and had real good hands, and so my coach would play me about halfway between third and home and let them try to kill me when they hit it down that way, but that was I always had real good hands. And so when Renee found out she was pregnant with him, all of our kids are named after her side of the family. I said, I've got to mark, somebody. You got to let me have something. So we went through all the names of my family, and none of them fit. But she let me go with Brooks anyway. So he's named after Brooks Robinson, after his dad.
Wow, and I've known you guys for a while. That's the first time I've ever heard that story. So, and I promised everybody when we were building up to the show that there were going to be a couple of stories, and said that was a good one right there, Brooks Robinson. Man, that's a throwback right there. But which, I mean, since you played in the 30s, I understand you, by the time you were that age. I'm shocked that Brooks Robinson. I figured they'd have named you after like like Tipsy Reynolds or something like that, some guy that played for the Yankees back in 1912. Because Brooks made a comment one day about how old you were, and I said, "Well, how old is he?" And he told me, I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, that's not old." I said, "Me and your dad would have been in high school together. That's insane."
That's right. It's pushing on 60, but not quite. But getting there fast.
So, a few underlying themes that I've heard in our conversation to this point. I've heard small town. I've heard not big city at all. Matter of fact, you had to travel a little ways to. I don't know, like Farmersville. How big would Farmersville be? Like, give me a number. Like, how many people would live in Farmersville?
I think there's probably in the city limits. There may be 3,000. We have a lake, a big lake that covers. I think it's 17,000 acre lake or something. And so there are a lot of people that live around the lake. But we're 20 miles from Ruston, and on the south side of the lake, folks are 20 miles from West Monroe. And so there are people that live over there that don't even hardly come into Farmerville. They go different directions to work and grocery shopping and church and things like that. So, but we're a small community. Everybody knows everybody, and just rural America, kind of like Columbus, I'm sure.
Columbia. Yeah, I was fixing to say, I wish we were as big as Columbus. Columbia. Yeah. Columbia's probably got, I don't know, 8,000 or 9,000 within the city limits. And the county that we're in, Marion County, it's probably got, I don't know, 17,000 or 18,000 people. And it's the same way. It's a cheers community. Like, everybody knows everybody. You can't really get away with anything, especially when I was growing up. You couldn't get away with anything because, everybody knew everybody. They'd spot you, and then they would, when you got home, your parents already knew about what you'd done. You just walked in and, bent over because you were fixing to get your tail tore up for something that you did. So, but
that's it. Same way. Same growing up.
One thing about the small town deal, and I know especially like my girls never showed enough interest to be what I call a baller. They didn't want to be ballers. They played and they enjoyed it, but they weren't ballers. Now my son was a different story. My son, he would eat, sleep, and breathe it. Like, it was life for him. He played a little football and he played a little baseball. Stayed away from basketball. He's too short to play basketball. So, but one thing we stayed away from, and I want to get your view on it because I'm pretty sure your kids, since they're that athletic, y'all probably did it. We were small town, and really the only way to get any kind of exposure back when, like, my kid was growing up, my son's 25 now, was you had to play some form of showcase ball or travel ball or whatever, select ball, whatever. It goes by a lot of names. It's the same, falls under the same umbrella. We kind of stayed away from that. I didn't like the idea of playing like all weekend and missing church on Sunday, and they'd be practicing during the week. We'd miss church on Wednesdays, and look, I was trying to raise my kids. I was raised in church all the time, but that still didn't put me any closer to the Lord. And I wanted to, I guess, oversaturate them in church. Maybe it'd stick a little faster than it stuck for me. That was my goal. So with you guys, like you said, you got 3,000 people in Farmersville. You've been there how long, you said?
Back 16 years.
Okay, so where were you at before Farmersville?
Well, I pastored in Sterlington, where my daughter and her husband now live for 10 years, and that's where the two oldest one graduated from high school. Sterlington is
about the size of Baton Rouge, huh?
Of Monroe.
Oh, okay.
And so it's a little bit bigger growing community.
Okay, so Monroe, the Duck Dynasty people. Yeah, okay.
That's it. That's West
all
Monroe,
right.
Actually, West
so,
Monroe. But it's all the same place.
So that covered what the duration of your children growing up and all that kind of stuff. So
I think Megan was in the 8th grade when we moved back up here from seminary. I went to New Orleans and went to seminary, and Jake was born just prior to going down there, so he was 4 when we moved up. So they spent the biggest part of their childhood in Sterlington. growing up, and then we moved up here when Jake was in the 8th grade, and he was able to finish school down there because of his connection, and Renee was working down there, so he just continued to go to school. Brooks was not able to go to school down there, so he bounced around. He went to a little private school here, and then he ended up in Ruston at Cedar Creek, a little small 1A. Really, it's a college prep school, but they had a decent little athletic program, and so he drove to school every day, rode a bus to Ruston every day to go to school, about 3 miles from Louisiana Tech.
All right, so I mean, Ruston's a decent sized place. It's got Louisiana Tech University there. Of course, Monroe or West Monroe's got the Duck Dynasty, that whole thing going on. So those are two pretty large communities, but it's still technically you're still small town Louisiana is what you are.
Oh, absolutely.
So what path did you take with your kids? Like, did you go the showcase and select ball and travel ball and with all of them, or part of them, or none of them, or?
Yeah, well, Megan did not. Megan, when we moved back up here, we had not really. Travel ball was not a big deal, especially with the boys at all. They weren't doing that. We were still playing rec ball and all stars, and when all stars came around, that was when you really got the competitive stuff going. We played Dixie Youth and in that program here in this area, and Megan never played travel ball. She was on a high school team. She played, school team, but when she was in the 8th grade, she made her high school team, and then she just competed in high school. When Jake was, I guess, probably 7th, 8th grade, he began to really show that he had some ability. Jake was my kid that worked hard. He had to work for what he had, and he'd say, "Come throw to me, Dad. Come hit me ground balls, Dad," or whatever. So we spent a lot of time in the backyard, and that's kind of where Brooks is the athlete he is, and learned, I think, because I was with Jake doing those things, and he was just out there with us when he was big enough to walk. So we threw and hit, and I can't tell you how many thousands of balls I've stuck in a pitching machine. But by the time Jake got to be in the 7th or 8th grade, he really began to show that he was going to be a ball player, and he grew. I think that was part of his thing. He grew, and he was a little lanky and awkward, but he came into his own then, and so he played on a team that kind of played local for 1, maybe 2 years, but we didn't go off and travel. He played 5 or 6 tournaments. It was just a smaller little thing. But by the time he got out of school, then the travel ball was really going, and rec ball was dying. And when Brooks was 10, we got on a little team that was based out of Ruston. I think we played 6 or 7 tournaments from the beginning of March through the middle of June. Tried to really emphasize not being out of church, that it was important, and we weren't just going to go all in. But I'm not going to lie to you. We kind of were led to believe that this was the avenue that you had to take if you wanted to expose your kid. College coaches were coming there. And that's just not true. We didn't see any college coaches until Brooks was a junior in high school, and then our sophomore in high school, we started seeing the college coaches show up. He went to LSU when he was a freshman. Well, actually, LSU came to scout a guy when they were playing in the playoffs in South Louisiana. And Brooks pitched in the game, and he threw 85, and he was a freshman. And Nolan Kane said, "Hey, I want you to come to LSU to a camp." And so that summer we went down, and he threw 87 in that camp. And so they made a couple of phone calls, and we got a call from a national organization. And so Brooks played with them for a couple of years, and they did travel. We went to Atlanta, we went to Birmingham, we went to Texas and all around South Louisiana. But it was hard, man. I was going on Saturdays and driving back late Saturday night, and Brooks was either staying with someone else, or Renee would drive out and stay on Saturdays. And so it was a drudge. It was hard. And then in the end result, I don't know that it accomplished anything. We spent way more money playing travel ball than we could have paid for his education, I can tell you that. But it was fun. We enjoyed it, but it was hard.
Well, sir, first of all, I'd like to thank you for coming on this show and telling the truth about travel ball. We've had more folks, especially in my area, that have espoused that same nonsense that the only way your kid can be seen is if he's playing on some travel ball team, some uber competitive travel ball, having a 4 and under, travel ball team. We're going to have tryouts. I mean, it's insane. And then what you said was you spend so much money trying to elevate your exposure when your talent is going to show through. You're going to get opportunities to be seen. I mean, first of all, and I understand Brooks, we'll talk about this in a minute, Brooks went the JUCO route, but Brooks ended up at a SEC baseball powerhouse. And they might have been down the last couple of years, but these guys won a national championship 2 years ago.
Right.
So, I mean, and he's going to be on the mound pitching for him. I mean, so you can't say that, well, if he wouldn't have played travel ball when he was 10 years old, he'd never got that chance. That's insane.
Right.
So I was wondering, I was glad you brought that up, because you being a pastor and those travel ball teams practice all the time and they're gone every weekend somewhere playing ball. I wondered how you juggled that. Or did you go to the travel ball tournaments and just get in the car and drive home every Saturday night to preach on Sunday morning? So I was wondering if that was the philosophy. I know you do that now with Brooks. Now I'll see you on a Friday and Saturday at Starkville, and then of course you're back in the pulpit on Sunday morning. You usually miss the Sunday action. So.
Yeah, and it was like that. The team that Brooks actually played with was based out of South Louisiana. Most of the kids were from Alabama and Mississippi and Texas and South Louisiana, and he was really the only kid from up this way when he started playing with them. So we didn't practice. You showed up on Thursday or Friday in the summer, and you played pool play games on, and it played out through the weekend.
Yeah.
And I would leave out with him Thursday or Friday, and we'd drive in and play and spend the night. Like I said, Renee would drive to us, especially the South Louisiana, the 3 or 4 or 5 hour deals. Now, if we went to Atlanta, which is, that was a week-long deal. But, it's outrageous in the cost and the expense of that. Now, it's great baseball, but I'm going to tell you, it's not any better baseball than we played in the local small town community back when the kids that played were kids that wanted to play ball, and everybody didn't play ball, and everybody didn't make the team, And we played just as good a baseball 50 years ago as they're playing, or 40 years ago as they're playing in a lot of this trap ball stuff now.
Yeah, I was a pretty decent athlete. I played football and baseball just like my son did, and I was a better baseball player. And there were teams I played on where I felt like I was probably one of the better ones on the team. But I played against. Listen, when I came through high school in this little small community that I live in, I played against a rival high school that had 9 guys on that team I played against. 9 guys that got opportunities to play Major League Baseball. They signed major league contracts. So I'm not gonna say I played against some studs, but I've watched some YouTube stuff and watched some of these young prospects. And well, first of all, they look like grown men. They look like they're 25 years old when they're 17. So I mean, I will say this: I wish I would have realized the advantage of the weight room and pitching exercises and all that kind of stuff that Brooks does every day. I wish I'd have realized that. My shoulder wouldn't hurt so bad right now. I told somebody I threw my shoulder out 38 years ago or 40 years ago.
Changed.
And that's what I told them. I threw my shoulder out 38 years ago and it still hurts. So
that's just getting old, man.
Let me ask you a question, because you were talking about how many years, because you said Brooks was the only one that did the travel ball deal. So how many years, like how old was he when he started, and when did y'all kind of cut that off and concentrate on other stuff?
Yeah, Brooks played travel ball 10, 11, 12, and then he took a year off because he wanted to play basketball. Brooks could dunk a basketball in the 8th grade, and so the high school basketball coach said, "Hey, man, you need to play basketball." And I said, "Well, you can't do it all." And so he played basketball in a local league that summer, so we took a break and just played summer ball, and their high school team had a little league they played in, so we did that. Maybe it may have been a couple of then he went back to playing. We played a little showcase ball. Actually got a picture the other day at Mississippi State. He played the last weekend before they started the renovation out there, and he was out there. Got a picture of him sitting on the field when it was over with. So high school ball is really when Brooks kind of began to expand, and he played 3 years of real travel ball, and then the last year was COVID, and so grandparents weren't able to see him play in high school, so he chose to stay local and play with a little local team that primarily played tournaments around here. We did go to Memphis and play in the tournament, but most of them were rather local tournaments where the family could come watch him play.
You mentioned earlier your 2 older kids were chasing athletic, careers, but then they realized they wanted to go a different route. You said your daughter ended up being a nurse, your son ended up being an engineer. I can see where it would be impossible to continue to try to continue an athletic career in college and try to pursue those two. Those are 2 very intense degrees that you're chasing there. But I do have a curiosity question about your son, though. You said your son started growing up getting taller and he was lankier and all that, and left-handed. So when he did play, was he destined to play first base and pitch a little bit, or did he play other positions on the field?
Well, he tried to pitch, and he did okay, but he did not have the arm, the velocity that Brooks had. But Jake was probably one of the best first basemen in high school ball that I ever saw. You couldn't throw it. Nothing got by him.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If he was tall and lanky and left-handed, he perfectly
could stretch, and he just made it look easy. But he was a very good first baseman. Yep, that was his.
He was perfectly suited to play first base. Tall, lanky.
Oh yeah.
And you said he didn't pitch, or he tried to pitch and didn't have the velocity, the velo. Yeah, that's all the big deal, velo. But I mean, left-handed. If he'd have worked a little bit, I'm pretty sure they probably could find it's hard to find a left-handed pitcher that throws strikes consistently, because when you find them, you hold on to them pretty tight. So.
But he loved first base and he was good at it.
Yeah.
So he had a pretty good career there.
Well, Brooks probably walked up to him one day and said, "Look, man, I'm the baseball player. Just do what you do, man. I'm gonna handle it from here." So, was it like that? I mean, what was? I mean, I'm pretty sure, although all 3 of your kids were athletes, they had to have had 3. Did they have similar personalities, or were they polar opposites? Or?
Oh man, they're total opposites. They are. There's some things about them that are similar, but Megan, you could put Megan in the floor with some colors and a color book and come back 4 hours later and she was sitting in the same spot coloring. Jake was a little bit more needing of attention, and so he was the kid. He was a little mischievous, and he would get into stuff and cheat on every game. He was going to win. You turn your back, and he was moving the checker pieces around.
I was going to say, I thought that was a given. I thought that was a given.
But then that baby, he got all the personality, He came into this world so confident. As a matter of fact, if you ask him, because he was filling out some paperwork for Major League team, and one of the things that they asked him was, your characteristics, and the first thing out of his mouth is confident. And they used to have an award that he got every year that I think they made it up for him. He was most confident. He's never lacked that. And so Brooks he thought he could do it, whatever it was, he thought he could do it. The only thing I saw him struggle at was snow skiing. The first time we went snow skiing, he struggled for about an hour, and then after that, he was on. He was getting it. It's just everything comes natural for him.
Yeah, I had to get on him when he was on the show. Like I said, him and Kenley Hawk were on the show, and he dominated the conversation. I would have to stop him and let her talk. I kept apologizing to her for him hijacking the show. And
Yeah.
he's like, well, I'm just like that. I'm just like that. I said, oh, trust me, I know. I will say this, so I am glad that I met Brooks, because Brooks was just a shining light out there, dude. I could be having the worst day and see him, and he'd have me laughing in about 5 minutes. And then, of course, if I wouldn't have met him, I'd have never run across you and your wife. And like I said, man, from it seemed like 10 minutes after we started talking that day, me and you had known each other forever.
Yeah, our personalities kind of connected real well. Yeah.
All right, so we've made our way through high school. You got two older kids. They're out doing their own thing. They're chasing engineering degrees and nursing degrees and doing that. And you got baby Brooks is coming through, and he's showing both of them what a real athlete's supposed to look like. He makes it through high school. He just breezes through high school. It's essentially on confidence and good looks, that kind of thing.
There you go.
So it's time for him to leave high school. Like what was his process? Like, did he, 3 weeks before graduation, he come to you and say, you know what, I don't understand why LSU hadn't come here. I don't understand why Texas or whatever, I don't understand why they hadn't called me. So, or was it like, man, I just want to play ball somewhere. Just get me somewhere.
I think Brooks learned that baseball is a business. College athletics is a business. When he was 15, 16 years old, and all of the big schools were calling and following him, and coaches checking on him, and it was all great. And then he had a little issue with his shoulder and had some inflammation, and it was like, well, he's not pitching, we'll go to somebody else. And then the COVID deal came along, and it was kind of heartbreaking, to be honest with you, because he just saw himself playing big time college baseball, and when it came down to it, he got a couple of walk-on offers, some JUCO offers, and it was like, okay, what's going on here? And so we really had to kind of back up and reevaluate the process. And I think we learned, and I learned as a part of that as well, that you kind of have to trust God through these things. We have a plan. It always doesn't work out that way. I can assure you, JUCO was not a part of our plan at all. And when Brooks decided, he said, I'm not going to one of these local universities and walk on. I'm better than that. And if they can't see that, I'm going to go to Mississippi. I'm going to go somewhere else and let somebody else get a look at me. And so off to Hines he went. And you heard him say that. I think that was probably the best experience that Brooks had. He saw that there were other kids that were as talented as him, that pushed him. He had to learn to be coached, because he wasn't perfect in everything. And some of the things Dad had been telling him, all of a sudden he got to hear from somebody else, And then at the end of that, I went back and said, that was all a part of God's plan of just getting him in the right place. The Dodgers, the very first time Brooks threw in a scrimmage, the Dodger scout was there, and he got on pro baseball radar, and he realized, I'm going to get a chance to play professional baseball one day, and so it just totally changed his process of thinking. And he went down there and he told you about that, coming in, pitching 6 innings in that 17-inning ball game, kind of closed things out.
Mm-hmm.
And popped a couple of 95s. And by the time he got on the bus, he had offers coming from all over the country. He had coaches flying down to see him, and was actually working out for a school when Coach Temple called him and said, don't commit to anybody. Mississippi State's fixing to call you. And, the reality all unfolding. You just, sometimes we get ahead of ourselves. You just have to take a step back and let things happen, and it's worked out. Brooks has got a new arm. He's throwing the ball right now. He threw the hardest bullpen he's ever thrown. Last weekend, 2 miles an hour harder than he's ever thrown, really about 4 or 5 miles an hour harder than his normal bullpen. I really believe he's going to be bumping some 97s, 98s when he gets back out there. It's all just kind of happened, and so you don't try to make your way. You just do what you can do. Trust the Lord, and for him, it seems to be working out. He's not there yet, but it's moving in that direction to see that dream come true.
Well, for those now, if any of the viewers missed the episode I had with Brooks and Kenley, he talked a little bit about it. As a matter of fact, I don't know. He might have just gotten back on the mound when we talked to him, or maybe wasn't back on the mound yet. I was going to ask for an update to see how it was going, but you talking about bumping 96, 97, so which that's considerably harder than he was throwing when he first got to Mississippi State.
Oh yeah. At the end when he got hurt, his average fastball. We were talking about that yesterday. He had got up to just above 93 with his average fastball. He would throw 95. He'd throw 92. But 96, I think, was the hardest he ever threw. But Brooks always throws harder in a game when it's really happening than he does in a bullpen.
Right.
But he threw 93 in the bullpen the other day, and his bullpens last year were 88 to 90.
Yeah, I was thinking, so he's got that adrenaline flowing out there when there's a guy standing in that box. So.
Oh, absolutely. You got 13,000 people, screaming and hollering. Yeah, it gets your heart racing, and it's a different matter. For
those that don't know what happened to him, you talking about he had a procedure. What was the actual procedure they performed on him?
He had a complete UCL replacement, Tommy John's. They took a ligament out of his arm, rebuilt his elbow, and everything was just been perfect. Major League Ball told him they love it, man. He's got a brand new arm. He got a rebuilt motor. It's new. They don't have to worry about wear and tear. And so, in hindsight, all of this, the struggles, the ups and downs, the battling, I think is going to really pay off for Brooks. And looks like Mississippi State, he's gone back to pitching again. We came to state, they knew that he went in that 11th inning and closed that game out, and that's a hard. Not everybody can do that. That's been a starting pitcher.
Right.
And Brooks proved when he got there that he could. They sent him out bases loaded against Southern Miss and had to have an out. He went out and got it out. Same thing with down at Tulane. He got put into some really tight situations. The 10th inning of that game, that walk-off Alabama game, he was in that in the first SEC game that we got to see him pitching, and so, but he threw a fastball and a slider. That was all they wanted him to throw. But Brooks throws change up, and he's got a decent curve, and so he's been pitching again and being able to locate and throw those pitches, and so hopefully he's going to get a chance to push for a starting spot, and because that's what he's always been. That's who he is. He's a starting pitcher that was used in a different way, and he was happy to be. He was getting pitch, he played, so he was happy for that. But we'll see what happens, man. I'm excited about this year.
Saw a lot of arm issues this past year. Well, the last 2 years with this team, and I tell people all the time. I think these young men are having a lot of arm issues because they just throw too much. We used to we'd play baseball, but then we would play another sport. We'd rest our arm, so our arm wasn't killing us. But these kids will be throwing like 9-10 months out of the year. I mean, that's insane. So. But like I said, I'm glad to see he's coming back, and I'm really glad to hear the update you just gave. It so he's on pace to be back when they start back this year. He should be ready to go.
He could play now. They've shut him down just to give him a little bit of rest, and he's not doing anything until middle of July, I think, when they all come back.
I tell you, I'd love to see him. Which I told the viewers that I did a little security. I didn't do any of this past year. I was so busy with stuff going on. I was able to make it up for one weekend. I was going to try to catch up with you guys when I was up there, but y'all had to go back earlier. You had to go back. Brooks told me, I don't remember if he said you had to go back earlier or y'all both had to go back early. So I missed you guys, but I'm definitely going to be back up there because some guys like Brooks that I've followed, since they got there, I want to see them in live action. I want to see them getting after it.
Yeah. Well, he's excited, man. He's worked hard and he's ready to get out there and play. And I know it's been frustrating for all of them. That's not what they expected the last couple of years. There were some injuries, and I don't know have all the answers, but I know the kids are ready to put all that behind them, and they go out there to work to get better and to compete. And so we're just looking for a good experience, good year. He told Coach Lamonis the other day, he said, I've got unfinished business in Starkville. So, my plan is to be up here, helping this team win. So we're looking forward to it.
All right, so 2 more quick questions and we're going to get out of here. One,
yeah.
You've been watching him do it forever. You've been watching your kids play forever, especially, Brooks, you've been following him pretty heavy because he's come all the way through college, throw it, pitching and all. Before the injury, or I guess the first time he toes the rubber after the injury, who's going to be more nervous, him or you?
Oh, he don't get nervous. He doesn't get nervous.
So you and Renee are going to be nervous enough for all of y'all, huh?
He thrives. He thrives on that. You put him against, matter of fact, when they told him, said, we're going to let you throw your first batting practice, who you want to throw to. He said, Hunter Hines. He said, I want the best we got, so that's just Brooks. He's just wanting to compete. This college stuff, man, it's the most miserable experience of my life. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've got ulcers and have to take Pepto-Bismol.
I watched you pace quite a bit. That's why I was asking.
Don't sleep at night. It's tough, man. It's tough. You think them fans, they can be pretty rough up there when things ain't going well. Right. So it's
All right. So, and I hadn't had. I don't know if you've had a chance to even talk to Brooks about this. They announced today, Monday, that Mississippi State has their new baseball, their pitching coach. Came from South Carolina. I know a little bit about the guy. I mean, he's a pretty solid pitching coach. So is Foxhall, but I don't know. Something came off the rails there. So I was wondering if you've had a chance to talk to Brooks and what he thinks about the new guy, or what, he probably hadn't had a whole lot of interaction with him, but I'm just curious, you as a parent, him as a player, what y'all think about it.
Well, I think, he thought a lot of Coach Fox, and Brooks would be the first one to tell you that from his perspective, when he failed, it had nothing to do with Fox. It had to do with Brooks missing his spot. He said, when I didn't succeed, it was on me. And so he was one of those that kind of defended him. Hated to see him go, kind of got his feelings hurt a little bit, but he understands it's a business and some changes have to be made. Right. So, he loved on Coach Foxhall, and now he's got a new coach coming in, and so he's ready to meet him. He told me, he said, I'm ready to, get to know him and let him do evaluation of me and see where we're at in this process. And Brooks wants to play ball, man. It doesn't matter.
Right.
The next level, you don't get a choice in who you play for. You get to play for whoever wants you to play. Right. And it's just kind of the way it is now at this level that he's at. And so I think he's looking forward to compete and learn, and whoever the coach is. And it sounds like Parker's going to be, a pretty good guy. They speaking highly of him. So we'll see how it all works out. I haven't even really done any investigation of him, to be honest with you. We were on vacation last week with Brooks and Kinley at the beach, and so I had him all week. So
I saw your sunburn photos, man. I'm telling you, you need to learn to use some sunscreen, man. You were burned up. So Colby White, the namesake of the show here. That's why he's not here with us tonight. He's still chasing that dream. He's in the minors right now. He's as close to fully recovered as he can from his UCL surgery. He's back throwing. They're getting him in some game time activity. That's why he's not here with us tonight chatting. Still chasing that dream. And like I said, Brooks the same way. They got both got that same mentality. Colby was a big supporter of Foxhall too. So like I said, I wish the guy all the luck in the world, but I'm super excited to see what the new guy coming in is going to do though.
Yeah, well, after these, it was tough. I'm not sure what happened. I know you can't take their success away, man. They won a national championship,
right.
And Fox was a big part of that. And I wished it would have been better, situation for him with Brooks. I know Brooks kind of felt like he let him down, when he got hurt. You can't control those things, but you go back, and I'm not bragging on my kid, but Brooks was having a lot of success. Stone had a great start to the season. Landon, you lose those three guys out of that.
Oh yeah, you talking about 2 years ago?
I think it just filtered from there.
I'm telling you, 2 years ago, second weekend of the season, when Landon Sims went down, I thought there is no way this just happened. And then it was one arm injury after another, and I'm like, what is going on here? So
yeah.
Well, man, look, I have had a. I wish we could have got your beautiful face up here for everybody to see it. For those
man,
that know
that.
you,
I got my hair all
hey,
fixed
for
up,
those
I'm
that
looking
for
good
those
for
that know you and
y'all,
love
I can't even
you,
get on. I guess I got a face for radio,
yeah.
baby.
Like I said, for those that know and love you, they know how ugly you are. We'll get you on later. We'll get this fixed. If I had to sit down with you live in Farmersville, we'll do it again.
There you go. That sounds like a plan.
Look, man. I guess the next time I'll run across you in live action will be somewhere on the campus at Starkville. I'm assuming Brooks hadn't entered the portal on me and he didn't tell me. So,
yes, sir. Looking forward to it, and we'll have a conversation for sure.
Hey, brother, can't thank you for enough for being on. I have thoroughly enjoyed having a conversation with you about the ups and downs around raising a baseballer, because as I listened to your story, I heard a lot of my own story in that. I was that uber competitive that kind of mellowed out down the road, and had more. And I enjoyed watching my kids play ball more than I usually did coaching them, because I was probably harder on mine. I probably should have been stressed out and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I can't imagine if my kid would have continued to pitch in college, I'd have been a nervous wreck watching him pitch. So.
Yeah. Well, I wish he was swinging a bat. That was what he was good at. He was actually a better fielder than he ever was a pitcher. He just throws so hard.
Hey, look, man, we might have to.
The way it goes.
He wouldn't be the first guy that played a position and pitched Mississippi State. I mean, Bobby Thigpen went to the pros doing that. So.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All right, man. Like I said, can't thank you enough. Don't want to hold you any longer. I mean, it's almost your bedtime at this point. I know down there in Farmersville, when the sun starts going down, it's time to go to bed. So.
Oh, we us old folks, we have to get in.
That's right. Listen, I'm the same way. I gotta be up rolling in the morning for work. Tell Miss Renee I said hello. And when you see Brooks and Kinley, tell them that I can't wait to run into them again also. So.
Hey, I got one thing to say for you.
Yes, sir.
Because I know
Go
my
ahead.
family's listening. Dad did not cry. I'm pretty emotional.
Look, $20. I'm actually kind of glad. I'm actually kind of glad you weren't on video, because if you'd have been bawling and squalling, they'd have been two of us up here bawling and squalling. So I'm gonna leave it right there, guys. Look, can't thank my guest today, Mr. Kurt Auger, enough for being on, and we will see you guys next Sunday. Oh, no, it will not be next Sunday. It will be next Tuesday. Got a special guest, Greg Kreindler, is going to be on, and we're going to talk about baseball and a canvas. And you'll know more as we talk. You guys will know more about that. So we'll see you guys next week. It's going to be our regular time, Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. And Kurt, thank you, brother, and I will see you down the road.
All right, my friend.
Y'all have a good evening, guys.